Well, man, I really appreciate you doing this and hopping on. And,
Absolutely, man.
I've heard a lot about you. We talk a lot about you, through TS. He's been an amazing person to know and interview,
Oh
and
yeah.
had him on a couple different times, helping him try to promote his book and, your books. And I got a funny story to tell you. I don't know when I'll tell you, but it's a funny story. I'll tell you now, and that'll be our pre-show. So I went to North Carolina Comic-Con about a month ago,
Oh yeah.
and it was in Durham, North Carolina. And I was so excited because the first guy I ever interviewed was Chris Saloff earlier this year, with Homebrew Comics. Do you know the Homebrew guys?
Yeah.
They know you. It's funny. And so I was so excited. So I got to meet Chris in person, and Dan and all the guys from Homebrew in person, got their books and stuff. And I walk up to the booth, and Dan, I had never talked to Dan before. But I talked to Chris, and I walk up to the booth, and Dan turns around, and then Chris is like, "Oh yeah, this is AJ, podcast I did interview." He's like, "Oh, are you Mr. Fish?" And I'm like, "No," but I can't wait to tell Mr. Fish this story.
I was gonna say, like when I got on, I was looking at the two screens. I was like,
Which
it's
one's
not
me?
often I'm on a podcast with that long of a beard. And oh, that's so funny. I have people at cons all the time be like, well, yeah, I saw you at this con at such and such. And I was like, yeah, not me. And they're like, no, it was you. I remember. I was like, I'm
I
sorry,
promise
man,
you.
but at a Comic Con, the bald guy with a long beard, it's the only place I blend in. There's a lot of us here. And,
So yeah, I cracked up about that one. I told TS about it, and I was like, I couldn't wait to tell you that story. So,
oh man, people never recognize me, even people that I'm on shows with all the time. Like I go on Sketch Up with Mog and Mel on YouTube a lot, and we talk all the time. I walked up to them at C2E2, and she's just smiling and staring at me blankly like I'm, just anybody off the street. I'm like, how do you not recognize me? But then I realize I'm like a foot taller than most people expect me to be.
okay.
And so they're seeing this mountain of a man standing there, and it's kind of imposing. And then once it clicks who I am, her face lights up, and she's like, "Oh, Mr.
Oh,
Fish!" And she comes running out, and she hugs me, and I swear to God, she jumped to the very tippity top, like above my wife, on the list of people I would do anything for at that con because we're standing there in front of her table just talking and chatting. And I've been on my feet for like 4 hours at this time by the time I saw her because I was there with the Heroic Awards doing interviews with creators and
sweet.
stuff. And my back was killing me. And all of a sudden, she just disappears. And I'm looking for her. She is on the ground tying my shoe. She saw that it was untied. She didn't even be like, hey, your shoe. She just bent down and tied my shoe for me. Like, that was the most genuine, kindest thing I've ever seen anybody do in my life. And honestly, even if she had told me, it would have been 4 hours
Just
before I
before
could have
you
tied
tie
that
your
shoe
shoe.
because my back hurt way too bad. I was not getting to that foot anytime soon. And like that put her at the tip top of my list. She just barely beat out my wife.
Just
But
barely.
that's that and only because we're essentially strangers. We're friends on the internet. And she does this kind, genuine, just loving thing. She's such a sweet person. And I'd do anything for her. She's the best.
That's awesome. Well,
As is also my wife.
yeah, get that in there. I won't edit that out, I promise.
You better not, I'll be in trouble.
No. I do very little editing to these episodes usually, unless somebody asks me, like, "Oh, I should probably not said that." Okay, no problem. I'll mark it.
If you could
Like,
cut out that part where I talk about my comic, that would be great. Because I'm just
no,
tired. We
no,
talk about
nope, that's not happening. Come on. We get to talk about this awesome book. Welcome to Talking Comics. I've been looking forward to having you on. We've talked about this for a while. TS has been telling me to get you on, so we got it worked out, and here you are. He went live today, and I was like, "So, what's the inside scoop on Mr. Fish? Give me like the, you know,
he's a narcissist. He's nothing but a problem. It's always him. It's all got to be his
yeah,
way. He
T-
will take your script and just demolish it, just add pages willy nilly. It,
so I'm glad you brought that up because I wrote down a list of what he told me to say.
I'm sure he brought up the script.
He
I
did. He
know he
said,
brought up the script.
tell him to stop changing my scripts," was I think the first thing he said.
He keeps saying it to me too, like he thinks it's gonna stick.
Stop. I think that's great because I've seen both sides of that coin, right? So like
Oh, yeah.
I wrote a comic, you've probably heard. Or not. Nobody's heard about it. Yet. I actually made a trailer. I'm going to release it tomorrow. I'm so excited. I let TS watch it. He liked it. So, um but part of the like, I wrote it, right? And I hired an artist, Mike Algier from Dork Art Studios. If you know who he is, go follow him. He's awesome. He lives up in Connecticut. So he's doing all the drawing for it and illustrating and everything. But part of it is I wrote the script, but like when he does the drawings and the lettering and stuff, he's like, he'll change a couple words here and there. And I think it's awesome because it only makes this, the story better. Right. And so I was like, I'm actually, I guess, on your side of this coin where I think it's awesome that he's changing my script and actually making it better.
As a letterer as well, um, it's very clear because I do a lot of client work with a lot of people. Like I've worked on, I think I got to go back and recount. I think I'm at like 120 books I've worked on in the last 7 years now. And most of the time that's doing pencils, inks, colors, letters, the whole 9 yards. Every rare once in a while, like Hellion and Bash issue 1, I just let. But I do a lot of lettering. And it's very clear working with a lot of these clients that they don't know what lettering in a dialogue balloon is like. And you will, end a sentence with a word like instantaneous, or or begin a dialogue balloon with words like indistinguishable. You don't put that long of a word in the smallest part of the balloon. And so I will often, like, especially with some of my regular clients that I know well and they know me and they trust me, I will sometimes kind of reword that sentence to push those big words a little bit closer to the center. So it's still saying the same thing, but you can start out with something like, we think, or things that small words that are easier to put in the small parts of the balloon, and then have the big words in the big part. And it fits a lot easier. But and then also in this instance with Alice Lost in Wonderland, like this is a story I've been working on for 30 years. So the characters are deep and rich and ingrained in my psyche and are as much me and my family and my kids and my experiences as anything. The whole Alice and the White Rabbit and public domain stuff didn't even get folded into the story until like 2 years ago. Um,
Wow.
Up until that, they were all completely unique characters. And but it's a long story. I had another idea for a story, and I ended up folding them together and realizing I could get the best of both worlds and have access to play in all these public domain realms in this interdimensional rift and put it all together and have fun. And then all of a sudden the characters started fitting all these, roles. But I'm getting off topic and TS
No,
gets on to
not
me about
really.
that.
No, that was
but
very cool.
but the thing
Don't
is, I
listen to
know these
TS. He's just
characters.
a writer. He don't. What does he know? No, I'm just kidding.
So every once in a while, I will like add a couple of lines because I just know that's what the character would say in this instance. Or even Alice, because of TS's influences, because he came in and started writing the scripts for me, and he brought so much to the collaborative process and made the world so much deeper and richer than it would have been otherwise if it was just me in a vacuum doing it by myself. He brought so much to it. She's become this much more interesting character and so different than she started out being that now, like, it just feels right that she has these weird mannerisms, like having lost everything, having lost her family, having grown up alone, following this time traveling wanderer through Wonderland. Uh, she has a habit of like adopting things that maybe you shouldn't adopt. So you find out at, one point that, she might have adopted and tried to make a pet out of a giant monster in issue 3, and and now she's trying to keep it from eating her, and it just shows another little aspect of who she is, and she wouldn't be that without everything that TS has helped bring to it. But occasionally I change things. Occasionally he gives me a really good idea, like in the first mini comic. And the first mini comic was supposed to be 8 pages like the rest of them, but he put a really funny little bit in there, and I was like, I could just add 8 pages to the comic and make it twice as big and really play out that bit for a minute. And we really get a chance to get to see a little bit of how the sword works and cutting portals and how it can be a little inaccurate sometimes. And it's so funny. And these kids are bopping around through the sky through one portal after another. Pirates are trying to shoot them, but they can't get a beat on them because they keep popping out of somewhere else. It's just he gave me a good setup and I ran with it. I'm the one that has to draw it anyway, so I was like,
Right.
what's another 8 pages? It's not the end of the.
How long does it take you to do a page, you think?
Oh, it's a little harder to time now than it used to be because I started using a flatter and that completely changed the process in which I work. Because I used to, like, if you hired me to do your book, I would pencil or maybe letter and then pencil page one, send it to you for approval, and then I would ink page one, send it to you for approval, then I would color page one, send it to you approval, and then I would start on page two and right through the process and have a finished page. And I would average 2 to 4 pages a day at that rate. Now, because I knew I needed to keep a flatter busy if I was going to hire her and pay this money to have her do this work. I needed to be able to give her a bunch of work to do and keep her busy. And I decided to start, I'll burn through the pencils and letters for the book, and I just start sending pages at you so fast. I have to warn new clients because the pages come fast, and sometimes when they're used to getting like a page or two a week from an artist, they panic when they start getting, 6 or 7 pages a day coming at them, and they think they have to approve them as quickly. You don't.
Right.
Take your time. You have time to look it over and, really make sure it's right before I get to the end of the book and I'm ready to start it. So hopefully, by the time I've got to the end of the book, you've at least got 6 or 7 pages approved at the beginning that I can start inking. And then I need you to kind of keep up, with me. But uh, usually that's not a problem. And before I would get stuck, like, if you have a stiff corporate job and you can't just be checking your messages all day, then I might get stuck doing those pencils. And now I can't do anything else till you get off work at 5 o'clock and can approve those pencils and I can move on to the inks. So then I would have to like scramble and find another little gig to do a pinup or something today to help make money to fill in those gaps because I can't just pay myself for work I haven't done yet, but I have to make a certain amount of money per day to be able to pay the mortgage. So, I had to stay busy and it made me have to scramble a lot, which is part of why I offer a deal for clients that are willing and able and comfortable to prepay in full up front. They get a significant discount on their books because it lets me work so much faster. I don't get stuck waiting on approvals so that you can pay me for page one so I can start on page two. I can just burn through the pencils, send them to you, burn through the inks, and then, when I get the pages back from the flatter, I can knock out the colors. The first book I hired her on, I had planned like a month and a half to do that job, and I got it done in 12 days. And I
Wow.
was like, okay, this is worth the money. Now, my messed up autistic brain thought, okay, you now do books in 12 days. And turns out I don't. They don't all go that fast. And
Right.
so I had to learn that the hard way. But still, I did like 23 books I worked on last year. So I work pretty quickly. And I've
That's
only
two a
done like,
month
yeah,
with a break, with a Christmas break.
and admittedly, like, I don't know what this break word is you speak
Yeah,
of,
I know.
but
Yeah, I don't either.
um but like one of those was like lettering Helene and Bash, which didn't take a really long time. One book I just penciled for a publisher, and it had hundreds of people in the book, but because of the way they were being drawn and the backgrounds were all fields and stuff, I got the whole book penciled in like 28 hours. If I hadn't taken a nap that day, I would have got it in 24, and it kills me that I didn't hit that goal. But
I'm
just because that
sorry, you
would be
took
a
a nap. Okay.
that would be a bigger brag than 28. 28 is a day with an asterisk on it. You know,
That
24,
no,
that would have been it.
28 hours to pencil a whole book is amazing.
Yeah. And there's huge crowd scenes, but they're all like these spirit beings. So they're all individual people with faces and hands and fingers, but they don't all have like clothes and stuff. You know, they're just kind of forms. So that went really quickly. And I got to put my son and all of his friends and stuff in the background, which was fun and weird.
It's awesome.
Um, it was a wild book. It came out really beautiful.
Where
But
did you learn to draw? Like, what got you into drawing?
I've always been an artist, and honestly, it's probably just because I was the best artist in kindergarten, which meant I could draw the best dragster out of two different size circles and a triangle, and I drew it better than everybody else. And then I thought to put a little squiggle behind the wheel. I may or may not have stole that idea from my 10-year-old brother that was older than me by 10 years, maybe. But I got so much praise for that, it burned into my little autistic brain. I was like, okay, I'm an artist now. And so I just kept doing it. And the real kicker was the Goonies. And I don't want to butcher his name, but the actor that played Data, I'm too country to say his name without it sounding insulting, so I'm not even going to try. Um, I love the man with all of my heart, and I wanted to be Data so bad when I was a kid. And I wanted to build a jacket just like his, full of gadgets and all this stuff. And my mom, being the brilliant saint that she was, knew if she took me to the junkyard to get materials for my coat, I was just going to drag home every cool thing I saw, and we'd have radiators and stuff in the living room. And like, I'll use it, I swear. So she made a deal with me that she would take me to the junkyard if I could make detailed plans of what I wanted to build and exactly what parts I needed, so we could only come back with those parts. And so I started designing my data coat, and then I got really into Inspector Gadget. So then I had to figure out how to strap a lawnmower head to my head to make me fly, and then how was I going to make my jacket blow up and be a flotation device? And then I started reading more comics, and I got into Iron Man. I was like, okay, I can figure out how to put jets into this armor and make it fly. And I figured I could probably mimic Magneto's powers. So the plans just kept changing, and eventually I realized that, like, without coming up with a magical power source like beta rays that Iron Man used to get from the sun, or the arc reactor that they use now as the little cheat, without some magical source like that, I can't power any of this stuff and make it work. You can't walk around with 80, car batteries on your back, no matter how big your armor is. And so I finally decided, between that and the fact I realized I was never going to look good in spandex, the whole superhero, supervillain thing was out the window. So I decided to just go into doing comics, as by this time I've been drawing so many superheroes and suits and things and armor and vehicles and things. I was like, you know what? I'm pretty good at this. And not for nothing, I grew up among some of the best storytellers I've ever known. I mean, most people called them liars or, old drunks, but they were some of the best storytellers. And I just loved sitting at their feet and hearing how, a trip to the gas station to get a pack of cigarettes could be this epic tale of, woe and misery and joy, and redemption. And they could make the dumbest things so funny and so interesting. And, I didn't understand how to communicate with people because I was autistic. And so I just sat there and studied these dudes. And a lot of times, like, I might have gone on that run for cigarettes with grandpa and, been sitting in the truck while all this happened. So I saw what happened and how he crafted it into this epic tale, and where he stretched it, and where he was, using the truth to springboard off into something more interesting. And it really, like, struck a fire in me. And comics are one of the places where I get to use my storytelling ideas and my artistic ability. I mean, I would love to be doing movies and stuff. I would love to have a YouTube channel where I make sci-fi epics and stuff all the time. But then you have to have other actors and expensive lighting gear and cameras and of course I would have to make lots of cool props and stuff and
What
that
about
gets
animation?
expensive. Animation is pretty cool and I like doing animation. I actually studied 3D design and animation in college and was supposed to go into the video game industry and that's a whole other tale. But I've I've been a working artist my whole life since like junior high when I started drawing people's D&D characters for fun, for money on the school bus. And then I started drawing pictures of their portraits of their girlfriends so they can give them as presents to try and get lucky. Uh, you know, then I started doing
Phenomenal.
logos and stuff for local businesses. And then I got to doing t-shirts and tape covers because it was back in the day for cassette tapes and CD covers and band posters and giant fiberglass polar bears for Dixie Cafe and giant chili dogs to go out in front of restaurants and all kinds of stuff. I painted murals for years, done done a little bit of automotive painting and stuff. I did so many wild things and had a thriving freelance business and then got completely crippled by neurological disease and spent like 15 years in a wheelchair, unable to walk, talk, and see.
So
And
that was on the list too. A TS brought up. That's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah. And I I had always been weird and I'd always been different. I'd always had a lot of issues. And, looking back now, I realized, I was an undiagnosed autistic kid. I was ADHD and stuff. But because I was smart and things like that, they didn't really register me as being ADHD. And, when I was a kid, you weren't autistic unless, you were nonverbal and, in
Right.
diapers or something. They didn't account for the wide spectrum of people that fit on it now. And I had all these weird little things that I did, like holding my breath and repeating things endlessly that I heard on TV and tugging at my clothes and rubbing my nose and all kinds of little things you'll see me doing. Like I get called out for stroking my beard all the time, like
I
some kind of
I do the
country
beard
wizard.
thing.
And, I'm like, yeah, that's a tick. I can't really help it. But even the fidgeting back and forth is a tick. And I didn't get diagnosed with having Tourette syndrome until I was 30. And by that time, I was on crutches. I needed a wheelchair. I couldn't see half the time because my eyes were clamped shut. I shook and thrashed constantly, looking like I was having a seizure. I've had I've had the cops called on me. I've had EMTs called on me because people think I'm having a seizure at Walmart because I'd be zipping around in my little cripple cart and I'd get stuck somewhere because I couldn't see and I didn't have any family around me to. Usually when I was blind, my little kids would get in the cart and they'd steer for me and we'd go. But eventually, they were running around looking at toys or whatever themselves and I get stuck somewhere and I couldn't see. And if I can't communicate clearly, then next thing you know, here comes the EMTs. I made myself a set of dog tags just so I could have some different answers on there to give people and to point to and like, point to my ex-wife's phone number, like call her because she's in the store. Like, call her and she can put an end to this right now. And it was it was brutal. It got to where I didn't even go out of the house without like a shirt on that said, I have Tourette syndrome, don't freak out. It make some joke about it. And like Tourette syndrome isn't the end of the world, no bacon is, or something, just to let them know what's going on. I have a sense of humor about it. You can talk to me about it. You can ask questions, and it helped break a lot of ice. But
How did you
I
overcome that?
I I didn't overcome. I partially I got on a good mix of meds. And I'm constantly having to adjust the meds because you get used to them and your body adapts and they don't work as well anymore. And so I found a mix of meds that helps, and I keep moving that around up and down to get where I need to be to help. Uh, that was a big help. A really big help was finally getting connected with other adults that have Tourette syndrome. I found a huge online community of people, And getting to talk with other people that had it, I got to learn from their lived experience of 30, 40, 50, 60 years. And they really helped me. And the biggest thing I learned was it's like the ocean beating on you. You're standing in the surf. It is either going to beat you down or wear you away like a rock, or you can surf it and go with the waves instead of trying to stand in the ocean and swear you're bigger than the waves. You're just going to get knocked down. And I kept trying to stop it, and I'm not going to shake and I'm not going to twitch, and that just makes it build and made it so much worse. And I realize now for a long time I was unintentionally making it a whole lot worse because I was constantly trying to fight against it. And now I just relax and I just let the ticks flow. And occasionally, my head will twitch a little bit, and I, I'll brush my beard a few times, and I'll rub my nose to get the corners of my mouth, or, might blink a little bit. But if I just relax and let that happen, then that tick goes by and it's over and done. And we wait for the next wave to come through. It's when I stand and I stop and I try and fight it that it all builds up. And next thing you know, I can't see and I can't speak and I'm seized up on the floor looking like I'm having a seizure. I have I shook so bad for so long that I gave myself so many concussions that I will give myself another concussion now just imitating it or shaking my head no too hard.
Wow.
I was playing with the kids and I just instinctively imitated something funny one of the grandkids did, and I whipped my head fast last night, and I've had a headache ever since. And I mean, it just feels like somebody's grinding their fist into the corner of my head over here all day because I've done a lot of damage from because I shook so
Right.
much for so long. And so it definitely comes with drawbacks. On the other hand, it makes me really freaking fast at drawing comics. And the hyper focus is freaking amazing. I can sit down at like 6 in the morning, and if I'm not careful, I will still be sitting there at midnight and I haven't got up to get a drink or go to the bathroom or do anything else but sit there and draw.
For
And
comics.
yeah, so I have like alarms set to go off all day long,
Wow.
reminding me like, hey, you only have so much left on this page. You can only spend so much time on this page, or else I'll just keep twiddling in the background and doing all the cool little details and stuff that are so
Uh,
small nobody will ever see. And um, I once drew this whole stadium. It was taking place in a kung fu match in this one panel of this comic strip, and it was showing this whole character's backstory, and he won this one kung fu match, and so I filled this stadium full of like 60 or 80 old men, and I pulled up this old sumo match so I could get like real faces of real people from the 70s, and I'm drawing all these individual little guys in there in the background, and I draw like 60 little Japanese men in the background, for this match. And then I zoom out and I realize the whole stadium is smaller than my thumbnail. And I'm like, well, that was 2 hours well spent.
but if they ever zoom in on that,
My God, if you get the high resolution version and you really zoom in, it's brilliant. But
best
yeah,
panel ever.
yeah. Oh, it's great. I got so lost in doing perspective because it's kind of fun for me. I used to hate it, but now the mathematical zenness of it, like if you do it right, this line goes to this line and everything just kind of fits and it works. And you keep putting the lines in places. The next thing you know, oh, that cube turned into a pillar in a building, turned into a whole block of buildings, turned into recessed windows with little trim, and I'm, doing this room for this character, and then she's got to have a little nightstand by her bed, and it needs a glass of water and an alarm clock and a lamp and needs a picture on it of her and mom and dad. And then I'm like, well, I have to make mom and dad look unique, but look like their faces could emerge to make this person. And then I realized when I zoomed out that the whole nightstand was like the size of my pinky nail and squarely behind a dialogue balloon. So nobody's going to see that no matter what. But by George, it's beautiful.
Oh, that's got to be the worst. It's behind a panel or a word bubble.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man,
Nobody but myself to blame on that one.
that I have pain now because of that.
Hyperfocus is a double-edged sword. I get a lot of stuff done, and sometimes I get lost down rabbit holes, and I'm like, oh, I just lost a day going down the rabbit hole of like screen printing videos on TikTok. And the next t-shirt's going to look awesome, but
Yeah,
I
I need
lost
to
eight
work on
hours.
my screen. Well, I don't screen print, but I need to make better designs. That's what I need to make.
I have been doing all my own t-shirts, and like I did custom hoodies this time in the last campaign because I got real sick of the swag I would get from other campaigns that I worked with
Hmm.
on other books. And it would be like the drop ship stuff, and it would be shipped out of China or some cheap place. And the first time you wash it, all the print comes out, and the shirts were weird textures and stuff. And when I realized with the heat press that my wife wanted to buy anyway to do custom shirts for the family, I could get, full color,
Transfers.
nice DTF prints for good prices and do my own shirts that I know are on high quality shirts that feel good, that my sensory issue self will wear,
Hmm.
then and are big enough for me because I'm a freaking giant, so it'll fit anybody. And I can have all the sizes and I can do all the things. It's just a lot of times, like a friend would have a really awesome shirt on their campaign that I really want, but it's about three sizes too small for me. And
Right.
so now I can do it to fit anybody. And I've done screen printing in the past professionally, working with people and lots of different things. And I'm like, I could fit a small rig in the corner of the office if I move this, do that. I could fit it in there. I know
It's
I could.
interesting because I have very similar. Uh, it's crazy. I have all the equipment 3 rooms over here. I have all the equipment to do shirts and everything. Like I have the heat press. I have companies I can get the transfers from. I decided recently I wasn't gonna do that. I was like, I'm just gonna have somebody else do it. And now you're making me want to do it again. I used to travel to
It's
conventions and do this like on site, do transfers
mm,
on site at conventions for. I owned a hobby shop, a board and card game shop for about 8 years. And then when I sold the store front, I transitioned into miniature accessories for tabletop miniature games and made those and using transfers and stuff too. So I have the whole setup and I have a trailer to pull it and everything. But I don't know. I was just, I thought I was getting too
I
old for that.
I saw somebody doing sublimation prints on site at a con, like right
Hmm.
across from us one time. And that really got me interested in the thought of it because I was like, I could take a stack of these DTF prints and a stack of blank shirts and get all the sizes of shirts I'm going to need, but not have them stuck being an Alice Lost in Wonderland
Exactly.
shirt if you wanted that size shirt with a Mr. Fish Comics logo. And then I could just press or have my son pressing shirts on the
Right
spot
there. Yep.
and doing it. It's like,
That's what
but
I did. I have containers with every size shirt, blank, 2 or 3 different colors, and then a container of just transfers, you know?
I was planning on going that way. Another thing that I used to do a lot of was before I got started doing comics was I would do a lot of um, custom caricatures for people like digitally. And so I would give you this really cool digital image, illustrated, usually comic book style because people like that. And, either get you some nice like photo prints made so the colors are real glossy or something. And then I ran into a guy at a show and he didn't bring a stack of prints for all of his prints. He brought a book with the prints in it and he brought his high-end printer and pays for electricity and he prints the posters on the spot.
Right there.
So he doesn't have to waste time with a bunch of stock that's not selling in one particular thing. You pick the thing you want, he prints it out right then for you, and there you go. And I was like, I could start doing those prints, and then you could have really cool posters and really cool backgrounds that I could spend a lot of time on and do 20 backgrounds. And then you pick which backgrounds you want, and I could draw your character on there in 20 minutes and give you a nice 11 by 17 glossy poster to take home of your kid as Spider-Man or whatever. And I was I was wanting to start moving that direction and adding that to what I do with the comics. And so year before last, at the last two cons I had scheduled for the year, I paid for much bigger tables in big spots. And I was gonna say like, okay, if everything was going great at the con so far, and I started getting my books offset printed instead of getting like small digital runs, so that brought the price of the books down each so I could sell the books cheaper, and then people started buying them like crazy. I was a firm believer for a long time, and I would testify to this left and right, scream it from the mountaintops. I was a firm believer that we, as indie comics guys, we're not selling McDonald's hamburgers. We're selling like, Kobe beef, dry aged, grass-fed steak. And people that want this are willing to pay a premium for it. Like people are willing to go to Kickstarter and pay 20 or 30 bucks sometimes for a 28-page floppy comic book because they believe in it and they want to see it done and they want this cool thing that they know is going to be a limited run. I was like, so charging like I fought with one publisher for a while that we needed to take our books from $5 to $10. And when I took my books at my tables from $5 to $10, I I would make about 70% as many sales at a show. But I made more money and more profit on less books. And I was like, okay, yeah, this works. I'm going to keep doing this. And then I went to C2E2, and I don't know if you know Henri Common. He sells more books in any comics than anybody I've ever seen. He got to the point to where he sells out at every show, and he quit counting. Now he counts by pounds of books that he ships to the shows. So he's like, oh, we sold out of like 100 pounds or 200 pounds of books or whatever he sent to that show. And dude sells books like nobody I've ever seen. He's a freaking machine. I offered to like, I was like, man, I will lug books for you. I will fetch coffee. I will do whatever it takes. I just want to follow you around at a con and see what you do. And he's like, oh man, if we're ever show together, man, come hang out. So we happened to be at C2E2 at the same time. So when I wasn't doing interviews and stuff for the award show, I went hung out with Henri, and he's like, yeah, man, sit down, have a seat. And I sat down and just watched the master at work, and he did everything differently than I did, and everything differently from top to bottom. But the big thing that really stood out to me was he was sell his cover price on his books was like $3 or something for one series. And he's like, but if you buy all four right now, I'll give it to you for $2 a piece. And like had this great deal going, or it was $4 and I'll sell it to you for three, something like that. But you get this great deal if you buy them all right now, and he'll sign them for you. Hey, while I'm signing them, why don't you, sign up for the newsletter? And he got so many what the hell sales, and I never got those. I only got the sales to the people that were really into indie comics already, and were like, all right, let's see, but it looks cool. I want it. But he got so many people that were like, somebody like little old ladies. You know what? I know people that like comics. I'm gonna give that away for Christmas. Yeah, let me give them. That's a good deal. And like this old lady don't read comics, but she just bought the whole series, because it was a good deal. I wasn't getting those things. And so that got my brain going. And so at the next con, I had paid digital printing prices for all these books that I had, but I was getting low on some stock and I was going to have to reorder anyway. And I was like, okay, this is going to be the deciding factor. I'm gonna treat this con like I'm getting my books offset. I'm gonna charge those prices and see how it goes. And I sold out of a whole bunch of stuff to the point I shot myself in the foot. I would have made probably twice as much money if I hadn't have sold out of some of those key issues. And my deal didn't work great anymore.
Right.
Like you could get all of these for 20 bucks. And I'd have a little tablet on the table. And I was like, but I tell you what, if you sign up for the newsletter today, I'll give you this whole deal for 20 bucks. You can get every book on the table for 20 bucks. And I had so many little old ladies be like, you know what, that's a great deal. I'm gonna get that, give them away for Christmas presents. And I'm like, I don't know who's gonna like getting issue one of Call in their stocking and getting issue
Issue
two in
four.
somebody else's,
Right.
but Okay,
Not my
yeah,
problem.
I'm happy to sell them to you. And I
Right.
got a lot of email signups, and I sold out of a whole bunch of books. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. And everything was working great. And then, so I was like, okay, let's go to a bigger setup. And, and then I'll start bringing in my kids to help man the booth. And I can spend my time doing caricatures while they're selling books and pressing t-shirts and all this stuff. And those two cons, for different reasons, just didn't make any money. They were a total money sink. One of them, just the people weren't going to that show for American style, action comics. They were going. It was labeled as a small press con, and it was a zine con, and I didn't know that going in. And I love zines, absolutely adore them. I would have loved to have gone to that show. I just wish I didn't pay a whole bunch of money to table at that show, because we drove across the country to get there, and it was a very expensive trip, and I think I made maybe $50 on that trip. And then the next one, the con decided to switch locations. It had always been a really lucrative con. I made a lot of money at this show, and they decided to move to a convention center downtown, which is a great big place and really cool. And it had absolutely no parking, so you had to pay $35 on the street to park. And there was nobody walking the con but uh, other vendors and people that got dropped off by their moms. And lost a bunch of money on that one too, because I like paid to take my son and his girlfriend out there to help man the booth. And so that's more food and that's more lodging and all this stuff. And, and I gave him some money for working the booth for helping me out. And yeah, that I'm still paying off that credit card bill for
Right.
those. But
That's never a fun time. I've been at both ends of that spectrum too at conventions, and
I mean,
it
you
happened.
learn your lessons and you grow from it. And, that I wouldn't have thought moving the location would have made as huge a deal as it did on that con. But it went from like a fairgrounds where there was lots of open dirt parking for people to park at and get in, to being downtown, which was already harder to get to, and a stopping point for a lot of parents that didn't want to have to walk through those streets with their, four little kids. And then $35 for parking on top of tickets to get into the show. Yeah, that I couldn't have done that as a young parent.
Right.
I can't blame them.
Yeah, not at all. That's so tough. I had similar situations. I went to one that was more of a video game convention but it was labeled as both video game and tabletop game, but it was like 95% video game, 5% tabletop. And it was like the most I spent on a booth ever. And the only benefit was it was only an hour away, so I could go home every night and have to pay for a hotel, and saved a little bit on food. But that's why I was able to pay like the higher booth fee, right? And we made like I think $23 the whole weekend. We didn't even cover our lunch or our parking,
But
and
yeah,
it was
the
horrible.
the worst show I ever did, I made $25 the whole weekend. But I was an invited guest, so I didn't have to pay anything to be there.
Well, that's good.
And it was a cosplay con, and I learned a good lesson there. People don't go to a cosplay con to spend money. They go to a cosplay con to show off their cosplays and
That
meet with
they've
other
already spent money
cosplayers.
on.
Yeah, I mean, they've already spent a bunch of money to get these costumes ready. They're there to have fun and show off and meet other people doing this. They're not there to spend money. And that's perfectly fine. But if I'm only there to make money, then that wasn't a good fit for me. And
It's
but
finding
then
that fit, right? That's the
mhm,
key is I'm starting to do conventions next year with the podcast and my comic and stuff. And my comic's a byproduct of I wanted to learn how to do it, right? So I wrote a script. I want to learn how to write a script. I wrote it. I want to learn the process. If I'm interviewing these creators,
it's the
I need to
best way
learn
to
the
do it.
process, right? It's the best way to do it is to do it, right? Learn it is to do it. Same thing with this podcast. Got to learn it. You got to do it.
Hmm.
Um, so it was that, but it was also the mentality of I'm coming from a place where I had a booth with products that I sold at conventions. So the goal was to make money, at least cover my expenses for the going to that show because I've been all over the country doing these shows. The last show I was actually the last show I did was in 2020. I was driving in my car to Chicago for Adepticon, and I got the email 3 hours away from home. I was on the road for 3 hours, got the email that it was canceled because of COVID. So I turned around and went back home. Um, so COVID kind of just, and I had to take a break after that. I was like destroyed. And but now that I'm getting back, I'm getting real excited because the last couple of years I've been like, I got to do something. I got to get back into this scene somehow. So this podcast has really helped that, writing the comic and being able to go to comic conventions. So we're going to Terrificon in Connecticut, which is going to be amazing. So that's where Mike lives, Mike Algier from Dork Art, the guy that drew my book. So we're going to do that one together. But I was thinking about C2E2. Is that one a good one?
Man, it's a gigantic show. And
Okay.
now it depends on how you feel about those kind of gigantic shows. Um,
Right.
I know some people aren't big fans of the big shows, and because you're a much smaller fish in a much
Mm-hmm.
bigger pond. The only show of that size I've ever worked as like selling my books was Fan Expo in Dallas. And that was right after COVID. Like it was one of the first shows that opened back up after COVID that I got to go to. And a friend of mine, Chuck Pinot, he had a table before when COVID shut down and they didn't do the con, that he was going to be splitting like two tables with four friends or something. And none of those guys were able to go when it opened back up again. And he was like, "Hey, Fish, you live kind of close to Texas, don't you?" And I
Yeah.
was like, "Yeah." He's like, "You willing to drive to Dallas and go?" I was like, "You better believe I am."
Yeah. But you're
So
what, 3 hours, 4 hours, maybe
that
5,
was like a 6 hour drive for
6?
me
Okay.
because I'm like in the
Dallas.
middle of the state.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But
Okay. Yeah.
it was, yeah, it was easy. And I went over there and I flat cleaned up. I had like just the first issue of Green Zone out that I could sell of my own book finally that I was doing that wasn't somebody else's. I was down probably the furthest back table in the back corner of Artist Alley, like way back in the twisty turny back. We probably didn't see, I would think maybe 6% of the people at the con even come through our area. And I made money hand over fist. Like I the weird thing about being autistic is when I built my mask of like how to deal with people, I didn't really have a lot of friends or stuff to build it off of, so I built it off personalities I saw on TV. So there's definitely a little bit of like, "Hey, how are you? Come on down to Uncle Eddie's." There's a little bit of that to the personality that I portray, which has made it a little bit easier to be on things like TikTok and stuff and be like, "Hey, it's your Uncle Fish Fest recommend you need to come." I didn't expect because I was really terrified about going to cons because I'm autistic and people scare me and I don't like looking people in the eyes and I don't like being around crowds and I don't like loud noises. But once I started like making a game in my head about like how many people can I talk to, how many people can I get stopped, how many people can I pitch one of my books to, how many people can I get through all the steps of my pitch, because I learned to hone my pitch down to a few different steps instead of trying to do the whole thing.
All
I
at
got a
once.
short
Yeah.
one and then see if they're paying attention. If they're looking down the aisle, like let them go, get to the next person. If they're still paying attention, give them the next piece. If they're still paying attention, give them the third piece. And now I'm pretty sure I got a sale by this point. And I made a game out of it, and now it's fun. And now I enjoy, like, that was one of the things that was very different about me and Henri's way he sells. He stands in front of his table the whole time and just quietly standing there. And as people come by, he's like, "Can I tell you about my comic?" And if they're like, "Nah," they walk on. It's good, no problem. Can I tell you about my comic? And where I'm like, "Hey, you look like a man who likes indie comics. Why don't you come on over?" Like I'm much more carnival barker. And sometimes I bother some people, being that way, but I tend to make it fun and stuff. And like, like, "You like indie comics?" And people are like, "Oh, gross, comics." And I want to be like, "You know where you are, right?"
Right.
But you're the guy dressed as Shazam. It doesn't seem like a big ask to see if you like comics. The ooh gross is a little insulting when you're wearing a, skin tight red onesie. But okay. Instead I'll be like, oh, that's awesome because I've got the most uncomic comics you're ever going to see. Not a single superhero, not a single type, not a cape inside. Why don't you come check it out? And like make it fun. I used to make a lot of money with caricatures because I'd see couples going by and I'd be like, you, sir, did you know that it's been scientifically proven that you're 10% more likely to get lucky tonight if you buy a girlfriend a caricature? And, just anything to get them to laugh for a split second and stop. And I could usually like sell a caricature and usually some books while we were chit chat. And so anything, if I can get you talking about the shirt you're wearing or get you talking about the cosplay that you're wearing or, anything, it's become a fun game for me and I really thrive specifically because I built my mask off people on TV, which is just
Hey,
a
that's
little
it
coincidence.
works.
It works. So,
The
why
the
not roll with it?
biggest struggle I was gonna have, or still probably will have when I go to conventions, is gonna be we're really going as the podcast, right? Podcasts don't sell anything, really, you know. So like I have to like really change my mind. Like I'll have the comic to sell, maybe a little bit of merch, shirt or something, a hat maybe. That's not gonna go great, like gangbusters, right? But like I'll have the comic, maybe I can peddle a few comics. But it's like I really got to think of, that newsletter sign up or the subscriber
Hmm.
to the channel. Like that's your sale. Like it's marketing.
Oh
It's
yeah.
not, you're not there to pay for, if I can pay for my lunch, I'll be happy, right?
Yeah.
But
Like
the rest is just marketing.
any cheap free giveaway you could do that has like a QR code on it that'll take them back to be able to sign up to watch your podcast or sign up for the email or, sign up for the email and get a free digital copy of the comic. Like I'm
Doing that
giving
now,
away,
doing the first 4 pages free right now. If you sign
yeah,
up
I
for
give away
Substack.
the whole first issue of Alice digitally for free now if you
Sweet.
sign up for my newsletter. So constantly I'm giving away bookmarks and all kinds of things. And I'm like, like I had a guy sell me a novel at C2E2, knowing when I paid for this novel, there's no way I'm ever going to have enough time to stop and read this because I work 16 hours a day, 7 days a week drawing comics. I know as I'm paying this man my cash money, I'm never going to read this book. But he stopped me with a free bookmark and he sold the hell out of me. And I bought this book and I know as I'm handing him the money, I'm never going to read it. It's still sitting in a box right now. But that bookmark has never left my mind because he was like, hey, want a free bookmark? And I just took it because he handed it to me. And then he sold me, man. He lured me in like the fish I am, and he snagged me, man. And he deserved to take his picture and get his 10 minutes of fame because by God, he got. And so I took that home, and another guy I had met at C2E2 he was a writer, so he couldn't like do sketches, but he had done a bunch of postcards with a horror story on it, and he was handing those out until he ran out, and had a lot of people come back and be like, "That was amazing. What else do you have?" and bought his books. So I was like, okay. And then on the ride home, it hit me. I could turn a bookmark into a comic strip. And so, like, I've got a comic strip bookmark that tells you how the mighty Kaw got his name. And it's the only place that that's in print. And so, as I'm sitting here having them fanned out, waving them back and forth quietly at the table, looking for like whose eye gets caught, like I'm fishing. And I'll be like, if somebody gives it a second stare. I'm like, hey, would you like a free comic strip? And that gets their attention. And I hand them the bookmark. And I'm like, if you like it, there's a QR code on the back that'll get you a free digital comic. If you don't like it, it won't work. So that's a real good way to tell if you like the book or not. And then they laugh, and then we get talking. And then,
That's fabulous.
about, maybe 40% of the time I get a sale off of that, but that's pretty good. And it usually gets me a few email signups as they, want to check out the book for free. And so, for the 5 or 6 cents they end up costing me, to get printed in bulk, it's absolutely worth it.
Right.
Absolutely.
I, it made me write down when you were saying it. I was like, oh, I got to come up with my daughter calls me earlier. She got out of school, called me, and she's like, I got this idea for Panel Pete, my little mascot here. And I was like, okay, I'm intrigued. What you got? She's like, it's December, right? So everything's an advent calendar right now. She's all into advent calendars. And she's like, we're gonna write 24 one-page Panel Pete stories. And we're gonna do an advent calendar next year. I'm like, well, who's gonna draw it? What you'd have it done in 10 minutes. So but like I'm sitting here like, how am I gonna draw 24 one page? Like, I don't draw anything yet. Like, I gotta pay somebody to draw 24 one page. I'm just trying to process this. It's a brilliant idea. But now I'm like, well, maybe I just do them on the back of the post of our, because we have these little
Man, if you made
things
that
on the
into like,
podcast. But I could
oh,
put one, it's blank on the back. I could put a one page on the back.
yeah, if you
That's
made
what I
that
gotta
into like,
do.
and you could even do like a 4 panel, like
Yeah.
just set up comic strip of like, him in a couple of positions and then like a ha at the end or something, and then letter in different jokes and,
Ooh.
and use the same
Oh,
artwork or do 2 or 3
oh,
pages of artwork
right.
and then layer in different jokes
See,
over that.
brilliant. This is why.
I'm telling you, man.
This is
You want
brilliant.
ideas? I got them. I just don't have enough time to get them all made. I had to pick a lane and stick to it.
Right. That's a great idea. All right, we're doing the 24 page. Look for the Panel P Advent Calendar presented by Talkin Comics in 2026.
And if I can give anybody out there another piece of advice,
Please
and this
do.
is one on the bookmarks specifically, always look for the same thing in another department and like, the same thing being sold under a different name or for a different purpose. And a lot of times you can get way freaking better deals. Like when my wife and I were looking for wedding invitations, she really liked these, like 4x6, one-sided, glossy, full color wedding invitations that we could just slide into a card with a save the date on it. She really wanted to do one of that. But, when you went to like Vistaprint and you looked at the wedding invitations, they were crazy expensive and like, $5 a piece or something for that. But when you go to postcards and you look for one-sided, full-color, glossy postcards on the same cardstock at the same size, they were like 10 cents a piece. And so I had hundreds of those things for scrap paper for years because I bought like 30 bucks worth. And, I was like, you never know when you're going to need extras. I'd rather have some in the car to be like, oh, I'm sorry, here. I was on the way to take this to, when I actually forgot to invite you. And so that was great. So like I will shop around and like maybe the bookmarks individually I can get them down to like 30 cents a piece if I buy, 500. But if I look at postcards that are like twice the size, and I have a giant paper cutter because I like sometimes I'll print my own comics or things or I like to do a lot of
Uh,
production stuff
are
myself.
we related? Because I
Pretty
literally
much.
have a
The
guillotine.
beard was enough 23 and
Right.
me to know that we're from the same tree. I don't know how close the branches are, but we grew from the same tree. Um, so I had this big giant paper cutter anyway. So I got like, on the last bookmarks, I think I got like 250 or 500 postcards printed that were like, 4x6, I think. And so now I've got twice as many 2x6 bookmarks that I cut in half and and saved a ton of money. And now those bookmarks are all like a nickel a piece or something. And I saved myself like 30 cents a piece on those. And I've got bookmarks to give out for a very long time. And
Yeah.
I did that with trading cards. Like I got them done at a larger postcard size and ended up cutting them into fourths and had really high quality trading cards like that for way less money. And it depends on what they think you're going to do with it. If they know
Right.
if trading cards, oh, you're looking for something specialty, I can charge you more for that. Postcards, nobody cares. I can't get as much for that. It's just like when I'd be at the hobby store and those styrene rods that I wanted to make cannons for my little minis for the tabletop superhero game I was playing, are like $5 a piece in the modeling section over here. But if you go to the party section, they got a whole bag of styrene rods to hold up balloons for like, $3.99 for like 20 of them.
It's the
And
same
so
thing.
I have a whole bunch of those at the house too, because it was cheaper to buy them that way. So always look for the same thing somewhere else. That's my big tip.
That's awesome. What would you give what other advice would you give inspiring creators?
Do it. Do it. I mean, the market is flooded with people making comics. The beauty of living in this age where it's never been easier for anybody who wants to make their first comic is it's never been easier for anybody that wants to make their first comic. It's a double-edged sword. There's a whole lot of, we'll politely say, material out there. I don't want to insult anybody's hard work, but there's a lot of things out there that you have to rise above to be seen. And that can be really intimidating when you get started. But also, there is no better teacher than actually doing it. You can
Right.
grind away for years. I worked on honing my skills till I was like 45 before I actually got to make my first comic and get it out there. And still, it had mistakes and it had screw ups and stuff. The beauty of it is you're so worried about your first comic sucking, and it will. Congratulations. You win. It's going to suck. Everybody's first book sucks a little bit. That's okay. Those are lessons that you will never forget. You are going to remember forever. They're lessons that you're going to go back and laugh about someday. And it's part of the learning and growing process, but there is no better teacher. I have been making a living on my art since like the 80s. And my work has jumped just exponentially year after year and gotten so much better in the last 7 years because I started making comics. Like the difference between doing a t-shirt design or a logo like this, one or two a day for different companies, or, painting a really cool mural today or something, as opposed to drawing panel after panel after panel, page after page, full of hands and faces and shoelaces and dogs and all those things you don't want to draw, will make you so much better. I remember when, I was a kid and I used to have everybody's hands in their pockets and everybody was wearing hoodies and usually had their backs to the camera so I could draw as few hands and faces and things. And I'd do anything I could not to have to draw hands. Now, if you've read Alice Lost in Wonderland, the cobbler's lair is full of freaking finger spiders everywhere. Just because I don't care anymore. It doesn't scare me to draw hands. I put fingers everywhere they're not supposed to be now. But it's just,
That's great.
it takes all the fear away. And that's my other big tip, besides just do it, just start doing it. Like, you can make ashcan comics on your printer at home and staple them together, and you can get out of it for the price of a cheap printer and a long stapler. And, and start making your own books from home for nothing and sell them, for $2 and see what happens. Get used to the process, learning the process, learning how it works. Make mistakes on how many pages go in the book when you're doing it for free at home on a printer,
Right.
rather than when you just shipped out, an order for 500 books and you realized you got the page count wrong. Make your mistakes there where it's easy. Figure
Luckily,
stuff out.
I've been thinking a lot about that, the mistakes early thing. And TS and I had a great conversation about, on TikTok about, like the XP and the leveling up of,
Hmm.
D&D reference. And I've been thinking a lot about that just in my personal life. Where I'm at today, I'll be 44 here in a couple weeks. I've been doing something kind of on my own or entrepreneurial since, probably. And I started as a publishing company. I published novels for people, a bunch of novels. I never did a comic book till today, till now. But I did children's books. But learning all those things, like you're saying, the page count and how you have to have, the four count page, page has
Hmm.
4 pages, one sheet of paper has 4 pages or more. Yeah. So it's all these things. I was trying to figure out my level, like, right. Like, where am I at? Like everything I went through with the publishing company, with the game store, with the miniature game accessory company, and, you know, my day job that was entrepreneurial, a very small company that I got in early, helped them grow, and they ended up selling to this corporate company. Going through all that, and now the podcast, it's like it didn't really feel like starting over doing the podcast. It was filling a niche because I needed to get back into doing my own thing again. And
Mhm.
this comic and the podcast is doing that. But I don't feel like I've started over. I feel like I'm ahead of the game or ahead of the curve because of everything I've gone through in the past. So I don't know, just been thinking a lot about that. But I'm still learning a whole lot too. So I'm nowhere near like I don't know it all for sure. Not trying to say
Yeah,
that.
but that's the thing. Like all those different jobs I worked over my lifetime
Hmm.
that weren't doing comics, which was the thing I always wanted to be doing, taught me so much that helped me now. Like I
Right.
learned so much about the printing process working in a screen printing shop. I learned so much at a sign shop I worked at because we did so much CMYK big paper printing for giant posters and static clings for windows that they stick up when they're having sales and stuff.
It's
I
crazy
learned
because
so
I worked in
much.
one of those shops too, like 3 years
Yeah,
ago.
I learned so much through that process and learned I learned a lot about me. I learned what I can pick up and how quick I am at picking things up and what's scary and what's not scary. I taught myself how to make ash cans and books and all this stuff because I always wanted to just do an ash can comic. That was my dream. Um, I honestly only did full-size American style comics because I hit a YouTube video right before I tried doing my first comic, T-Man and Hyperstrike, and which only happened out of a weird strike of luck because I was on a TV show that was trying to help people with disabilities get jobs. And one of the things they had me do was go to the library and teach a class on designing superheroes. And the lady at the library offered me a free table at the con. And I needed something to sell at the con. So I did a Kickstarter and I did my first book. And I went ahead and did it regular size because I wanted to seem legit and fit in with everybody else. I really wished I had done an ash can. I love ash cans. That's what I always wanted to do. And I wanted to do it myself. Like, this is my punk rock book. I made it myself. There might be a little blood on it, but by God, that makes it awesome. Like,
Right.
I wanted to, do it myself. And so it's been fun to get to make some of my own comics and mini comics and stuff like that. And, but it's just, it's shown me that I can trust myself. I can learn this stuff. I can pick up stuff that I never would have thought I could do before. And it, it's taught me not to be afraid that I can do anything I want to do. And in that, I've learned lessons like steer into the skid. And if I'm scared of something or I don't want to do it, I need to do that as much as possible so I get past being afraid of it. I went I took Green Zone through a small publisher for the first couple of issues because I was so afraid of having to run Kickstarters and stuff because of my OCD and my anxiety. And what if I made a mistake and somebody didn't get what they were supposed to get? Or what if it went viral and and it might get a million sales? That's not something I really had to worry about. I didn't want to have to do the shipping and the packing. I was afraid of making a mistake. I let my anxiety get the better of me. And finally, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this just until I get over it. And now I'm actually pretty good at it. I'd like somebody else to do it and not I have more time to make books, but
Right.
I'm pretty good at it. And I've gotten the speed down and I get better and better each time and I impress myself each time. And I'm like, oh, that was clever. I really find that came out nice. And now I'm getting into the packaging and now I'm making the packaging look cool. And now I really need to
Yeah.
get that screen printing rig so that I can make the packaging look even cooler. And
I caught a few minutes of your podcast with Laura, what was is it?
yeah, Lori Calcaterra.
Laura,
Oh
yeah.
man.
I caught a few minutes of that last week when you guys were live and you were talking about the boxes and the packaging and that stuff. That was really cool. It's like I don't have boxes. Do I need a box? I'm not doing boxes. No, we're not
I
doing a
mean,
box, AJ.
for your first book, probably
No,
not.
no, we're not
But
doing a
like
box.
two campaigns ago, I realized when people bought the whole library from me at the time, I could just barely get that Gemini mailer to overlap. Like I could just barely get it to close. And I realized that's as far as I was going to be able to go with that box when people
Mm-hmm.
buy the whole library. So I had to figure something else out. And I could have found a box that was almost exactly the size as a comic book and just made it thicker and packed it, put some
Yeah.
bubble wrap or something, and shipped it. But I was like, but I also like sending out posters, and most of those big tiers have a poster or something with it too. And then I started looking at the boxes like, if I rolled the poster, I could fit it in this size box that comes standard. But if I do that, I got to protect it or those books are going to flatten. And then I was like, and I started looking, I was like, they sell these cardboard sheets. And if I made a little template and I scored it, cut a little notch, I could fold that and make this little box that insert that fits in there, and the comics fit neatly in one side and stay there, and the poster's protected. Turns out you can also stick the little 3D minis that I've been making inside that poster when you're done, and everything's neat and safe in its own little secret pocket. And then it just came up cool, but it's like it needs something. And then as I was opening one of our new phones that we got for either one of the kids or something, and I was looking at the packaging as I was opening and all these little signs and stuff like, do this, do that. I'm missing a really good branding opportunity inside this box. So now again, I've got the tools to do this, but I print up these full-size sticker sheets with these cool designs on it, and then I cut them in half, and one side goes inside the top of the box to like welcome you to Wonderland and tell you what's going on. And then when you get down to the bottom of the box, there's another message down there that's a little more sinister. You're never going to leave now that you're here because, frankly, once somebody reads the books, they're not leaving. You
No,
know, it,
we're not.
it's
My
very
daughter
rare that
loved it.
somebody's like, nah, it's
Nah, I'm
not
not
for me.
reading this again. So I've been holding
And
it the whole time.
yeah, I mean, it's it's a good book,
It
and
is. It's
I'm
very
really
good.
proud of it. And oddly enough, I joke around about it, but it really makes me proud how many people have come back and be like, "Man, first book was awesome, but issue two, man, the world is just so much bigger and more expansive, and like you can really tell you guys are cooking in this." And I like that's exactly when TS starts writing the scripts.
Right.
And like I give him a hard time about that just because it's fun. But it makes me proud because like
Hmm.
I was doing a good job. I'm a pretty good cook and I can really mix it up, when I get in the kitchen. But he just brings these extra flavors to the sauce, man. He just makes it that much richer than it was before and brings in his history and his experience and brings in emotionality in places where I wouldn't have quite put it yet. And like there's a scene that I just did in issue 3 that I'm super proud of. Um, that we worked on together. Like, I woke up one day with this bit of conversation between Alice and Captain Hook in my head. And I sent it to TS, and he's like, "Oh, that's awesome. That'll fit really great in this issue." And he incorporated it. And when I wrote it, like, they're having this fight, and she's like, well, I didn't come back for you because I thought you were dead. It's like, because you blew up my ship. And Alice is like, but you always loved my high explosives. Like, kind of like 80s, buddy cop joking around kind of vibe. And when TS gets done with it, like, Hook screams back, because you blew up my ship. And then Alice stops and cries and then looks up through her tears and says, "But you always loved my high explosives." Like, really hurt her, but I'm going to suck that up and I'm going to pretend like you can't see that I'm crying. I'm going to pretend like it doesn't hurt. And suddenly it's so much richer than it was when it was just a, ha ha, ba-ding, waka waka. I would have played it off much more,
Playful. Yeah.
80s cop fantasy, like, yeah, oh, that's just a flesh wound. I can't get hurt. But, for her to really get hurt, you can see it hurts her. And then, defiantly looking up through those tears and trying to crack a joke. I'm like, oh, that's okay. I was giving you a steak, but this is the steak. Man, this is melting your mouth. Beauty. Uh,
I love steak.
It makes me
You
proud,
can't
man. It's so
tell.
much better than it could have been on its own. It's awesome.
I'm loving the collaboration of the whole community, like, just
Oh yeah.
everything, and, with Mike and I, it's been phenomenal. TS has been phenomenal to bounce ideas and just talk to, message. This has been awesome. I wanted to ask you about this because I thought when I turned the page and I saw this, I was like, "Holy cow, this is amazing!" But like you put an ad in here, and I freaking loved this. Like, what? How did you come up with that?
That was a because I mistakenly put a pagination error in there and I ended up like a page short at the end.
Ah, so you needed to add a
And
page.
and but I love like adding in games and puzzles and
Hmm.
mazes and things like the Mighty Caw always had like some games and puzzles and stuff in it. And I got to the end of the book and I had a page left and I was like, do I want to take him a page further into the story? And because he got captured by space pirates and then he broke free of this unbreakable container and he killed all the guards that were guarding him and now he's on his way, to the ship's deck and he's going to get the captain in the next issue. And I was like, I could take him a little bit farther, but I really don't want to eat into the story for the next issue yet. And I was like, I'm going to put a maze here because that'll be fun. So there's a maze of him going through the ship and getting to the captain. And then that's what happens in the next issue. And then in the next issue, I was like, that's fun. So like at one point, one of these hellhounds of hyperspace like shoots out its spiked tongue and lashes it around his arm. And then the very next thing is one of those like twisted mix and match puzzles where both of them have shot their tongue out. Like, which one was stupid enough to lash its tongue around the Mighty Caw? And you got to like untangle and figure out which one it is that actually lashed him. And then he proceeds to like beat it to death with its own tongue. Um, but like love adding that kind of stuff in just because it was fun. And then when I had a free page, I was like, oh, okay, here we go. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? Am I going to do a puzzle? Am I going to do a game? And then again, this is a story I've been working on for 30 years. And so the character that is now the White Rabbit wasn't even the White Rabbit until like 2 years ago. He was just the traveler. He was just this barbarian that traveled through time and space with this sword that could cut through time and cut holes in midair and, travel realities. And one of the things he got along his trips was like this digital bag of holding on his back. And it's a way for him to be able to carry everything with him like a bag of holding. But there's enough magic. I didn't want that to be magic too. And then I started thinking through in college, like what would this be like if you had to make it a sci-fi thing? And I was thinking about my dad's Betamax. Like he studied everything when, video recording was coming to cassette tapes at home. And he studied it all. He's an engineer and he made the smart choice and he got a Betamax because it had a lot better recording quality and all this stuff and invested a lot of money in it and a lot of tapes. And then it very quickly lost its share of the market and disappeared. And we couldn't rip tapes for it anymore. And he had to buy a VCR anyway. And he was furious. But we had that giant Betamax around forever because the tapes were great. And
Right.
we I could still go to his house and watch Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer on it, no problem. So I was thinking like it needs to be big and clunky like that. So he's got this giant hard drive on his back and he's got this gauntlet that's essentially like having a teleporter pad on your wrist from Star Trek. And you can disintegrate things and it saves it in the hard drive and then you can recall it whenever you want to. And does great with inorganic things, doesn't do so great with living matter. Um, you can thank the Grundle fly from the fly for that. Like the whole doesn't do well with living. It totally stole that from one of my favorite movies as a kid. And so I've got all this lore for like how the thing works and all this stuff. And you get to see it on Rabbit's back in the first issue, but I never get to explain what it is or how it works or what it does. So when I have this free page and I was debating about like was I gonna do a like mostly fruit pie ad or something in there or what was I going to do. I remember those like build your own hovercraft at home. If you've got a vacuum cleaner and no soldering, you could do this for just $20. Yeah, Mom's not going to get mandatory vacuum cleaner up at all. And so I totally just started playing. And next thing you know, I've got all this legalese written out, and stuff for the contracts and all this stuff. And it was so much fun that I've continued it. There's a wanted poster in issue 2 that has all this stuff on there. It's a wanted poster for Rabbit. And there are a lot of secret puzzles on there. Like there are puzzles in alien languages that you have to decipher. There's all kinds of different hidden messages in there. Most of them all agree with, find the white rabbit, bring his head in, and you can get whatever your wish is. Your heart's desire will be granted if you bring in the white rabbit to the cobbler. And one of them is a secret message hidden deep in there from Rabbit to Alice, hidden in the wanted poster. So if you find that, it'll take you to an unlisted video on YouTube where you can be one of like you would be the third person that found it and watch the video and get to hear this secret message from Rabbit. There's 2 new ones in the new book hidden in there.
That's in issue 2 or in issue 1?
Issue 2 has the
No.
first one. Issue 3
Oh,
has the
I
next
don't
2.
have issue 2. I have to go buy it now. Dang it.
Well, I got them. I got a stack of them, and I can ship you some. But that stuff was so much fun, and then I got to go into the legalese at the bottom, and and it's fun to be silly, but it's also fun to like lay out some of the dangers in the lore about like dealing with the cobbler in general, because he's been a character that came straight from my role-playing games for 30 something years. I've been running essentially the same campaign for decades now of this superhero role playing game, and I've run some other sci-fi and fantasy games in there, but he's been in all of them, and he's this interdimensional being. And whenever you're looking to make a deal, doesn't matter if you're in a space station at the end of the galaxy or if you're in your bedroom, some door will turn into the door to his office, and you enter into his little pocket dimension. And once you're in there until he lets you out. But and he'll make you whatever deal he wants to make at the time. And they start out real generous and real friendly. And eventually you get hooked on, getting these easy deals
Mhm.
from him and powerful weapons and stuff. And then he'll start gambling for weird things. Like, I just want 2 days of your life, and you're thinking, but the end's not that big a deal. He can make much more consequential actions if he takes 2 days out of June when you're 35 and take you out of that instance that you would have changed the world if you had been there. It's also a great way to explain when players didn't show up one week, and dude would just boop,
Hmm.
oh, now's your 2 days and take them out. And well, that's where they went, and we could go on with the game, and then they could show up again next week. Like, what I missed. Um, but he's he's been a fascinating character, and getting to throw in some of the like just how sinister the deals are and just how quickly the consequences can turn, and how your heart's desire may show no actual relationship to any preconceived heart's desire, and is purely at the discretion of ye old cobbler shop interdimensional limited. And just throwing all that stuff in there, so I love that
Yeah.
stuff so much.
Do you actually have an address? Can people actually mail this in? That would be
No,
hilarious.
well, you can follow the standards. That's one of my absolute favorite bits that's hidden way in the fine print in issue 2. I'll send you a copy of it. It's awesome. Um, because he explains how to open a doorway to his portal, to his world. And in the fine print it explains that if you do this, he's not responsible for any destruction to your home world or your dimension or your galaxy that may happen by opening a portal. He's not responsible for any parts you may lose or in demonic possessions or blah 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 from interdimensional travel. And at the end, if a portal fails to open, that is not a failure on the part of EO Cobbler Shop Interdimensional Limited. That will be considered a sign that you either failed to do the right properly, or your soul is in possession of another deity, agency, or entity at the time and not up for sale. And so if it doesn't open, it's your fault, not his fault. And but God, I love it. In issue 3, you get to see somebody else open a portal out of nowhere. And if you're really paying attention, you'll see just how wide open the concept of a doorway is. If you're really paying attention. But if not, it's still a fun story. You're having lots of fun. If you're really paying attention and you got the mini comics along with it during the Kickstarters, then like when Captain Hook is revealed in issue 2, you realize what a big deal this is compared to when Alice was a little girl and the separate adventure that's just going on in the mini comics. If you're not reading the mini comics, it's still awesome. Captain Hook still looks amazing. She's still cool and terrifying and threatening. But if you're reading the mini comics and you're getting all the extra little juicy tidbits, you realize that things are a lot weirder than you think they are, and things have changed a lot since she was a little girl. And why did they change? How did they change? Maybe the argument they have in issue 3 holds a lot more weight now than we thought it did. Who knows? You got to read it all.
You got to read it all. You gotta catch it all. Got to get it all.
I'm the kind of guy at the end of the video game, like when you get that rocket launcher that blows through the metal walls, I'm the guy that goes back to the first level and goes back to that one room that had that shiny metal wall and blow that down so you can get that trophy back there that nobody else goes to get. Like I'm the guy that likes to hunt the whole Arkham map and get
Whole
all the
map.
Riddler trophies and stuff. Like I find that stuff fun. If you like that, there's lots of little things hidden in there to find. There's lots of little Easter eggs that point to stuff that we loved as kids and you know old movies and TV shows and things. Lots of funny little things in the background. There's lots of little things to decode and figure out. You really read the mini comics and stuff, you get all these extra tidbits. If you just like reading a fun comic, you can read a fun comic about, this beautiful blonde, bloodthirsty bounty hunter, hunting her adopted dad through the interdimensional, timeline. That's fun too.
Go any way direction you want. I love that. Well, I have some fun questions, but before that, is there anything which I'm going to have you back on eventually because there's just too much we can talk about. We could go for hours. But is there anything today that we didn't cover that you'd want to cover that you need to talk about or want to talk about?
The only thing I really, really want to mention is that issue 4 is going to be going live in February. So
Okay.
you can go to gomrfish.com and sign up for the pre-launch page. And I've been doing on the last couple of campaigns pre-launch rewards. So the more
Ooh.
people that sign up for the pre-launch page, the more rewards we're going to unlock for everybody that backs at the physical tier. Like this time, we got like a button released and a new sticker and stuff.
Ooh.
So there's all kinds of cool stuff to get
Pre-launch.
unlocked the more people that sign up for the pre-launch page. So, and it costs you nothing to sign up for the pre-launch page.
Right.
You don't have to back the book. You're just helping people get free swag. So why not?
Why not? Go. Yeah. I built a page for my book. I'm going to launch probably in March or somewhere around there. Mine will be done probably the end of January. And I have a friend that's going to print it. He owns a print shop in Michigan. So he's going to print it really cheap for me. So, but I'm actually going to fly to Michigan and I'm going to go there and I'm going to record and watch the first, book come off the printer and, get stapled and folded and cut and all that stuff. So I'm going to record the whole thing. So that's going to be fun. A small town tucked inside a quiet comic shop. Something magical is waking up. Billy never felt like he belonged. A new school, a couple of bullies, and no real friends. But everything changes when he finds a forgotten comic in the dollar box. From the pages of a comic comes a tiny, shape-shifting hero determined to help Billy find his confidence. He whispers encouragement, he sneaks through the halls, and he shows Billy the hero he can become. Because sometimes all it takes is one unexpected friend to help you rewrite your story. From the dollar bin to the real world, the Chronicles of Panel Pete, an all-ages fantasy one-shot adventure. A story about courage, friendship, and the magic waiting in every comic shop. Created and written by A.J. Ryman. Illustrated and co-written by Mike Algier. Are you ready for issue 1?
See, the last couple of campaigns, I've been using a printer in Arkansas for the first time. Like when the tariff started, I was getting my books printed in China and,
Right.
getting them offset printed, and they're coming at great quality. The only drag is the shipping container time to get overseas. Everything else is great, quick, and high quality. Um, but when the tariffs were going and you don't know where it was going to land and what was going to happen, it was too big of a worry when I was launching the Kickstarter to not know what it might be at the end. Like you've got to plan for this stuff.
Right.
So I started looking everywhere from Bangladesh and India and South Korea and Canada and Mexico and everywhere. Little Rock, Arkansas was the cheapest place I found. And they had already done books before. I knew they did good
Awesome.
quality books. They did, I can't remember the name of the publisher, but it was a series with like Red Rooster and Bass Reeves that went through Walmart. They printed all those books. So I knew they
Wow.
had the experience. So I was like, all right, this is great. I'm going to use them and they're close by. So I'm going to go film, video when they print them. And so I sent in the file and I approved it, everything. It was great. They already had half the books printed before I turned around. And they went way faster than I expected them to.
Right? No, he won't get the file till I get there. It'll be with me. No, it'll be fun. Just it'll be cool to watch it all, come
Yeah.
together. And
I,
I mean, it's
but
the coolest thing. And well, you get the pages, you do the pages, but getting the pages back, like, and
mhm,
just seeing them, it's amazing.
man, it's so cool. I've gotten to experience that on the other side a couple of times. Like I I helped my son write a story. Like I gave my son the plot of a story, and he gave me back the finished short story for my anthology book, Fish Tales. And it was another story taking place in my world of Green Zone, but not following those characters, just fleshing out the world more. And getting to see those pages came in for the first time, like gave me that excitement of what it's like, why people get so amped up when I send them pages. And like, oh man, it's so much cooler than I thought it was gonna be. It's cool
It
when you get to
is.
be on the other
It's
side of that.
so much cooler. I don't know. I tell Mike all the time, I don't have any more adjectives to use without, I'm out of them. I don't have any more. Like and we're on page 2. No, no, we're actually on page like 16, 17, something like that. But it's just, crazy to me, like how to see the interpretation of what I wrote on a piece of paper,
Yeah.
come to life is
And that's the
awesome.
thing. I could I could have gone back to doing logo design and stuff like I was doing when my freelance career ended because of my disability. And I could make per hour what I make per day now if I went back to doing that. And it's lucrative, makes good money, but it's so stressful. You're always working with people that have never hired an artist before. They're just launching this business. They're risking everything on this, hoping that it's going to pan out. And they're terrified. And you give them a great design that they love, and then they show it to their wife, and now they need revisions, and so we got to change it again. And now they love it, and then they show it to their neighbor, and their neighbor made a comment, so now we have to change everything. And now they don't understand why that costs more money, even though I spent 3 days explaining to them that once this we get past this point, if you keep making fast changes, it's going to cost more money. And it was so frustrating and stressful. And in the end, they're not happy with the design because they let everybody else sign off on it and give their 2 cents. And they were happy and now they're not. And it's just stressful. This way, I'm always working with, either professionals or very dedicated hobbyists that know what they're doing. They've hired artists before. They know when and where and how to ask for, revisions. If you need something changed, telling me make it 25% more awesome doesn't tell me anything. Put more stars on her costume, make her boobs bigger, make her cape smaller. Like give me things I can do, not just more awesome.
More awesome. Yeah.
You know, and they're always happy, they're always ecstatic at the end of the day. That kind of joy of loving what I do
Yeah.
makes it worth working such long hours, because I really do love my work. And I'm getting to do. I'm getting to do what I love. I'm getting to do what I always dreamed of, and I'm getting to do what I'm best at, which doesn't always necessarily line up. Like
Right.
I might want to be a famous country singer, but nobody's going to pay money to listen to me sing. So I can want all day. I'm not going to get
Right.
there. I can practice all day, and I'm still not going to get there. So, but this just so happens to be one of the things that I am best at. I could have been a really good engineer too, but this works out and hits all those little wrinkly parts of my brain at the same time, and I just love it.
That's awesome. That's a great way of putting it. All right, I have my fun questions I ask everybody. And then I know what I'm gonna do in February. We'll get you to come on like I had TS do. You can come crash our weekly episode with my daughter. She would love to
Absolutely.
meet you as well. So she's read it. I know it's for more adults, but she reads it. She reads
Well,
Harley.
that's
She's fine.
that's what I always tell people is like I warn them because like when they would see the Mighty Caw, he kind of looks like a cartoon. Like he looks like
Hmm.
He-Man. And I'm like, it's like a R-rated love letter to Saturday morning cartoons. It's a bloody bird barbarian killing his way across the galaxy. I was like, it's not for everybody's kids. I would be happy to show my kids that. I would let my grandbabies see it because they've grown up watching The Walking Dead. So they're not
Right. They're
hung up
fine.
about that. Your babies may not be as comfortable with it, but like there's no graphic,
Right.
nasty nudity or anything. Like I don't do not safe for work stuff. Like her top's a little short, but
A little, but
but I joke like that's the shirt she was wearing when she got there, and it's been a long time, so she's outgrown it. But um, she's in a sexy outfit, but you know, it doesn't get nasty. It gets a little bloody, but and lots of people die. But that's she's a bounty hunter. She's not a nursery worker. She's not a farmer. She's not a baker. She hunts people for a living.
that's right. All right. Here we go. Who's your first favorite comic character or super?
I was thinking about that as I was watching one of your other episodes.
Ah, you cheated. Okay.
Well, I mean,
It's fine.
you
I
had a
was
lot of
thinking.
great people on. You had
I
Ronnie
have.
Creates on. You had
Dude,
Stephanie on.
Ronnie was off. Stephanie,
You
you
had
know.
TS on there, man. I mean, how am I not gonna
How would you
check
rank
it out?
TS in that list? No, I'm just kidding.
Man, TS
I'm just kidding.
TS is a talented cat.
I have been
I
very fortunate with
I hung
the
close
guests.
to him when I met him for a reason. Because when he sent me the first script to read, I was like, okay, yeah, I'll read it. And I'm trying to think of every nice thing I could say, like, boy, you used a lot of punctuation. That's awesome. But it was so good. I was legit mad when I found out he was already like halfway through illustrations for Helene and Bash, and I didn't get to draw it. And I I'm still a little salty because I really loved that story and it's good. And when I saw how talented he was, I was like, I'm sticking close to this dude. I'm keeping him in my circle.
Right?
And so I started hiring him to edit and then do scripts for me. And he started in the mini comic and he did so good. I was like, yeah, yeah, you can take the main one. That's fine with me. I'm not that precious with my toys. But back to the superhero, the first one I really, really fell in love with. Like I loved Spider-Man, I loved Batman, Super Friends, but the one that I loved the most as a kid, the one I would no Darth Vader cape was safe as a kid because I would take that cape off and I would tape it to my shirt and I would yell Space Ghost and I would go flying around the playground. Man, freaking Space Ghost was my hero, dude. That's who I wanted to be. Blue Falcon was like a close second. If it wasn't for Dynamite, and I hate comic relief, if it wasn't for that stupid dog, he would have been number one. But Space Ghost was my jam, man. I loved
Face
it
Ghost
so
was
much.
awesome. I loved the cartoon when I was a kid. That
Oh
was
yeah, just wild, hokey, old-fashioned sci-fi goodness. You could be hunting giant alien monsters 1 minute, or mad scientists, or oh, I got a freeze ray. It's gonna freeze the sky in space and stop the sun from hitting your planet, turn it into a block of ice. Like, gonna just hit the planet with the freeze ray, but okay. You know,
whatever.
oh, it's so hokey. I love it so much.
Oh, and then the commercials he was always in too were just fantastic.
Hmm.
Oh, it's great. All right. Do you remember the first comic book you ever read?
I do. Oh, uh,
Ooh, he didn't prepare for this question.
I I looked it up the other day. I have it. I hunted it down. I was hunting it at cons. That was my goal, was to find it at a con, and I
Yeah.
finally did a couple of years ago. I was looking for a few years. They're like, you know, you can get it on eBay. It's like, I don't want to do that. I want to find
Yeah.
it in a
Right.
long box at a show somewhere.
Yep.
And I believe it was the Incredible Hulk 242, I think. It's him in this giant metal fist, and like Tyrannus is, in the bottom of it. I I couldn't read when I got this comic book. So it took me forever to find it because I couldn't read, so I didn't know the name of the bad guy. I loved that comic until the cover wore off, until the first like two or three pages fell off of it. I looked at that thing so much. I tried to draw the pictures in it. I just it scared me and gave me nightmares. I loved that book so much. It and the one right after it. I think I probably got them out of one of those like plastic, packs of like four back issues that you would get
Right.
for $2 or whatever at the dime store. And if I was good at the doctor, my mom would buy me one of those things when we, went to the pharmacy to get my meds or whatever. I loved it so much. And I finally found it. I think it was 242 if I remember correctly. But
You
I
make me want
finally
to go buy it
realized
now.
I could go back and just start searching every year. I was like, there's only 12 issues per year. It wouldn't take me that long to look through the covers, and I finally found it. Like, and so,
That's
Detective
really
Pimp.
cool. You're 100% right though. Like I like Thor, so Thor is like one of my favorites. So I'm trying to collect a lot of the Mighty Thor run and Journey
Oh,
run.
the one with like El Toro Rojo and the Blue Bat or whatever. Like, and
Yeah,
I think that's like one of the only places those characters ever appear is in that issue. But that was one of my early ones too that I had
that's
forever, and
awesome.
I traced and stuff out of forever.
I love it. But yeah, you can buy them all on eBay for whatever, probably pretty
Yeah, but
cheap. But
it
it's not
takes the fun
fun
out of the hunt,
to find finding them, and bought a few more yesterday at a convention. So whatever. We drove 3 hours one way to Charlotte yesterday for a 1 day convention. But where am I? What's your favorite current series? Obviously, it's Alice, right?
Oh man, I love Alice. Yeah,
Next
oh
next month
man.
we'll be able to say it's the Digger.
It's it's a toss up. I mean, how current is, because they're both indie comics, so they don't come out as regularly as like a Marvel or an Image comic does. But and not knocking any of that stuff, but like I fell in love with indie comics like when I found this weird black and white newsprint comic about these like radioactive turtles of all things. And I love turtles like crazy. And now they're ninjas. And I fell in love with this little black and white book that nobody had ever heard of. And then it took over the freaking world. But that made me fall in love with indies because that's where all the weird stuff happened. That's where Judge Dredd was, and Grendel, and all
Right.
these weird things. So I always wanted to grow up to work in indie comics where TS like wants to go to Marvel and DC and write those big characters. Like, if you want to pay me to draw Spider-Man, I'll do it. There's a million people that are dying to do that. I mean, I'd be happy to take the money, but I'm indifferent. But, doing my own weird stuff with this giant long snake cat demon monster thing and finger spiders everywhere and it's cyborg scarecrow getting his brains blown out. Like, that's my sweet spot. That's what I love. But my two favorites are Knock Around Guy from Big Tim Styles in Australia, about a super intelligent gorilla private eye who's super intelligent for a gorilla. He's about average for a human, but nobody ever makes that point. And he's a gorilla in spandex to hide his identity from all the other super intelligent gorillas walking in the city. It's so funny. Like, he's a gorilla in spandex with goggles on, and a trench coat, and he has to look both directions before taking off the trench coat to reveal his spandex. That's all over his face. I freaking love it so much. And like a mime can actually get killed by being trapped in an actual invisible box, and nobody knew it. They all thought it was part of the show until they got crushed to death on the street. It freaking chaos. There's a living cactus like bad guy named like Spiky McSpikeface. I freaking love that book so much. And the other one is from Kenny Aiken. It's Apex Cybernetic Samurai Owl. And it is just exactly as awesome as it sounds. It is like what Ninja Turtles wanted to be when they first started. It's just a cyborg owl wakes up in a lab and starts killing his way through all these giant monsters and giant cybernetic squids attacking from the ocean and dinosaurs attacking with lasers on their heads. And then this girl comes in this giant cybernetic polar bear suit and is trying to kill him because she thinks he killed her dad and he didn't. It's awesome. It's so much fun. I get so excited. The the peak of my career is that I got to do this giant wraparound cover for like the second volume of the trade, and I got to draw all the awesome stuff that I love
That's
from this
cool.
series all over the background. I spent way too much time on that cover, but that brought me so much joy when he tapped me for that. And he supports all my books. I'll buy anything the guy puts out because I freaking love it, but Apex is one of my absolute favorites. I will squeal like a little girl when I get that box in the mail. I have to get most of my knockaround guy stuff digitally because it's like $50 to ship it from Australia. So
Yeah.
most of that I get digitally. He did send me a care package recently because I back all this stuff. He sent me one through Kablam in Florida, which I freaking love. And Tim Styles is the freaking best. I've got to do covers for him, which was my top tier accomplishment up until getting to do that giant one for Apex. Like now it's neck and neck. But I've done like several covers for Knockaround Guy now, and that just brings me so much joy. Like that's like Eastman and Laird tapping you to do the Turtles in the '80s. Like that's oh man, that's the good stuff, man. That makes me happy.
What gets you excited to do covers? Like from you do covers from anybody. So if I asked you, like, hey, I want to
Well, yeah, I do
commission you
covers
to
all the time.
do a cover for
Yeah.
my book,
Um,
what is that like? How do you get excited about doing it?
it depends on like what the subject matter is, what I'm getting to do. Sometimes, sometimes the challenge of it is fun. Like I just recently did one for Ed Davis for his one-shot floaters about like, the floaters in the eyes are actually these like evil things that turn you crazy and all of a sudden people getting their heads chopped off and whatnot. Like, it's a one-shot horror story. And uh, it's a wild story that came from like real life experiences, and it hurts my eyes just to hear him tell the stories about it. I don't want to relive that. But when we were tossing around story ideas for a cover, he was like, I really love the movie poster for the movie Fright Night. Like maybe we could do something to do an homage to that. And I've oddly gotten tapped to do several movie poster homages. Like I did one for The Surgeon for Laguna Studios that was a ripoff of like it was an homage to Big Trouble in Little China, one of my absolute all-time favorite movies. And so getting to put all the characters from the story that I already love in the position of all these other characters that I love, that was so much fun. Again, I went way over the top. And this one for Ed for floaters, I spent way too much time painting the background because like there was too much cool opportunity to mimic stuff from the poster. Like the movie poster has, the haunted house with all the lights coming out the window. And in the story, like head gets thrown through the window and the cops shoot through the building. So there's all these holes coming through the back of the building where they shot through. So the lights coming out the window and all those bullet holes in this glow. And there's a face from the book in the clouds. And she's it's got lots of body horror stuff in it because people are going crazy, and so she's twisting into all these, tentacles everywhere and stuff. Um, it was a crazy challenge getting all that to look right and still feel like the movie poster. And I'm like picking colors from the movie poster to try and keep it, keep that vibe. And the challenge of making all that work and still look cool was, I was really proud of that. I've probably done cooler images maybe, but that I was really proud of how hard I worked on that and how cool it came. So,
Make it work. Very
you
cool.
know, and then sometimes you just get to work on your favorite books. So,
There you
nothing wrong
go.
with that.
What do you use for inspiration? Like the script, like you read the script and then like, okay, just do a cover, like, or do they kind of like in
It's
that situation? I guess they told you make it like this poster.
it is surprisingly rare how often somebody comes to me and says, "I would like you to do a variant cover for my book. Here's the script. Read it and, come up with an idea."
That's what
You
I
know,
would want.
that is so rare. I've probably honestly only gotten to do maybe two or three like that. Most of the time, they already have some idea, or like they know they want to use this for something particular. Like I recently did one um, for DM Ray for his Madcaps issue that's coming out, and it's going to be like the red metal holofoil cover or something. So we did a fire scene from the book, and dude walking out of the fire, and it's all like flames and burning building and
Yeah,
stuff behind him to really play up the effect on that red holographic cover, and that's going to look really epic when it's done. Or people will be like, I really want to do an homage to this Avengers cover or this Thor cover or something like
I need a Thor cover now. Dang it.
um
God.
like that one Avengers cover where, like Captain America, all the Avengers around the table and Captain America's like, one of you's a spy, and everybody's like, oh. I've done several like homages to that cover and drawing like 50 characters packed in around there. Um, so a lot of times they just come to me with like, this is the idea that I want, and this is what we're gonna do. Like for the Sentinels book that we just finished the Kickstarter for recently, I've done like 10 issues of that series, I think now for Roy. He wanted to homage the Usual Suspects cover from the DVD. So we did the lineup of all the characters, and we did them full color and we did them blacked out. So like he could reveal the characters in the lineup as the Kickstarter went on, which
Ooh,
was really neat.
that's neat.
The homage stuff is fun because it always challenges me into a different style and a different direction and doing something differently than I would have done. And I always kind of dreamed of doing those movie posters when I was a kid, back when they're
Yeah,
actually like, hand painted and whatnot.
right.
And I always wanted to learn how to do that someday. And now I get to mimic that in a way. It's fun. It's a fun
I
challenge.
don't have to have a Thor variant. The cool part about so this is just a one shot, right? So this is just a single story, but the character, the panel Pete, he's a shape shifting hero, right? So he can be anything and he can be in any timeline, right? And it was really cool because we have like in the book, like he's lives in a comic book, right? And he comes out of a comic book. So we had to pick the cover for that comic, which is going to be the origin story to him that we'll write next. But so we already kind of have the cover for it. But he can be in a western because I love westerns, and he can be in medieval time. He could be anywhere. So that's the cool part. But now I can put him with Thor or something. I got to figure that out. I got to have a Thor cover.
That that's a big reason why the character
Where'd
that's
my
the White
pen go?
Rabbit now has stuck with me for 30 years because he's a dimension time
Right.
traveler,
He can do
dude.
anything.
He can go to any timeline. He could
Yeah.
be in the far future when Rome ruled the world and just kept it. And
Yeah.
where did technology get to when Rome just kept control and kept driving forward for centuries? And what's it like after the bomb in this world? And what's it like, when the sea levels rose so high in this world? And and he can go back and forth, and he can go back to the D&D fantasy days, and he can go to the far future and high tech and be fighting robot cops over here, that all have a hive mind, and then he can be chased by aliens, and then he can, go back and save the princess and fight dragons, and just and then combine it all, like
Right.
what's it like when you can mix high tech with a ring of regeneration and all this other stuff? Like what happens when you mix all these things together? And now we've got 30 years of crazy story ideas and stuff that TS has to
That's
figure out how to put together.
yeah. And then you change it.
Just a little bit,
Just a
I've
little
got a
bit.
little bit of history with these characters. So,
Right. And I still think that's fine, like cool, because Mike changes a little bit, makes it work better. But I also love, maybe it's just because I'm addicted to, like, here's the script, come up with a cover is a cool idea to me because like I have no idea what you're gonna pick, you have no idea what you're gonna pick, right? And then like getting it back is just gonna be no direction. I just think comes up with the best creative art.
mhm.
It's just an interesting idea. All right, next question. Whatever. If you could live in any comic book universe, which one would you choose?
Oh man, honestly, you know, all of the different ones that would be you think would be fun to live in reality wouldn't be all that terribly fun for one reason or another. I would have to pick old-fashioned Archie. Like,
Mm,
me and Jughead could hang out at the malt shop, pounding down hamburgers and talking comic
drinking
books all day.
milkshakes.
I am literally a comic book collector because of Jughead. Like, I love comics and I bought comics. It wasn't until an issue of Jughead where he was showing his comic book collection to this kid that I learned it was something that you could save and you could really take care of and you could protect, and something that you could give away because he gives like a stack of comics to this kid to start his collection. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. Like, this could actually be something and not just a whole bunch of paper falling around my room and getting stepped on. So I started buying like cardboard boxes, long boxes and stuff, and bags and boards, and started taking care of them and organizing them. And, and then I started paying more attention to who the artist was, who the writer was and stuff. And it
Yep.
got to be,
That's
oh,
been fun for me, like the collecting, but then taking it that next step is really trying to pay attention to who the artists and who the writers are and
mhm,
learning like up until this, the last year, I've loved comics. I've had comics. I've bought them here and there. Go a couple years collect, then not buy one for 5 years, whatever. But it's like I went back and read some of my old like 2012, 2015 copies of like the Jason Aaron Thor run. And God, they're so good. I love that. It just being able to collect, and my daughter's gotten so into collecting, and now I'm buying slabs, and I don't know what I'm doing, but it's crazy. But yeah, she's into slabs now, but that's all right.
yeah, I can thank Jughead for all of this.
Yep, that's pretty awesome. If you could live, or I'm sorry, if you could have any superpower, which would you choose?
Oh, if I could just, one for one rip off a character, I would be Nightcrawler. Hands down, man. Blue, prehensile tail, freaking 3 digits, man. Teleportation, absolutely everything I'd want.
Awesome accent.
If I only get one power, the furry might bother me a little bit because I got sensory issues, and I think that I think clothing on a furry body would be tough, which I think is why nobody draws him furry, even though they say he's furry. But
Hmm.
that's a little continuity thing that bugs me. But if I just got the one, it would be teleportation. I mean, the amount of times I go to try and get something across the room, web shooters would be like a close second. And shooters, not biological web. That takes all the
Right.
brilliance of Peter Parker out of it. I
Agreed.
It's a cop out. But the teleportation to just be able to into the other room and back again. Every time I have to get up out of my chair when I send something to print and walk around all the furniture in the living room and down the hallway and down into the office to the printer to get it off the printer and then walk all the way back. Oh, I wish I was Kurt Wagner, could just go get it. But
awesome.
I might
I
stink
love
up the
that.
house, but by George, I would do it
Right?
all the time.
All the time.
Be
All
laying in
right.
bed. Poof, poof, I'm back. I went pee. I'm good.
I think my mom wants that power too. She hates getting up off the couch to go pee. But which comic book character would you want, any character, as your sidekick?
Oh man, the sidekick.
You don't have to be a sidekick, Vic. Be any character.
See, I need somebody that's helpful, somebody that would actually be beneficial to have around. There's probably a better choice. Like, there's probably a character out there like Kyle Rayner, Green Lantern, or something that's also a graphic designer that could help me get books done faster, like inking and coloring or something. My first instinctive thought, I'm gonna stick with Pepper Potts. Man, if she can take a drunk Tony, to the heights of, being a millionaire and keep everything running, I think she could really get Mr. Fish Comics in shape, and we could and start honing down all the stupid places where I'm wasting time and effort and money. And like, I would not have missed a con that I paid for the table at and then missed the email and thought I didn't get accepted and forgot about it and didn't go to that con. I wouldn't have lost that money if I had Pepper Potts watching out for my business assets. And she would have had, everything booked. She'd have had an Airbnb booked and, everything. Pepper Potts. That's my choice.
That's a great choice. I love that. But you're right. That's yeah. S okay. I try to do everything myself. That's my problem
Yeah,
too.
but that's
Yeah,
been my problem all this
right.
time too.
We're
And
twins.
I'm old. I realized there's just a lot of things I'm not good at, and I'm not going to
Right.
get any better. Like, I'm not getting any faster or skinnier, or, like, I'm just not getting any better at some of those things. So I need to focus on the things I am good at and let other people do the things
Do
that
the
I'm
other
not.
thing. Love that. Pepper Potts. We need Pepper Potts in our life. All right, here's the best one. If your life, or the last one, if your life were a comic book, what would the title be?
I make this joke all the time. So it would be the Book of Fish. And all of the captions would be written in a loving homage, let's say, to the King James version of the Bible. All the captions would be like, it came upon the midday hour, and he saw that he was hungry, so he proceeded into the kitchen and brought forth into the world a tuna sandwich, and he ate it and saw that it was good. And the dogs sat at his feet and beggeth. And one of them was a very good boy, so he got the tuna crust split between the three, and they ate it, and they also saw that it was good. And all ate and were fed. It would be the Book of Fish, 100%, hands down.
I love that. That was phenomenal. You could have done the whole podcast that way. That would have been fantastic.
I I was watching a podcast the other day and freaked the hosts out. I was on the show. Oh God, the name's escaping me at the moment. It's the Two Something Crew. It's not Two Life Crew, but there's some guys out of Texas that Ori Calcaterra introduced me to. And I was watching their show, driving me nuts. I can't remember the name now. And they were like, "What are the 10 commandments of being a comic book creator?" And I just started busting out with stuff in Old English, and they were like, "Dude, where are you getting this?" Like, most people don't know I'm also actually a licensed ordained preacher.
There you
I
go.
don't have a church right now, but I've spent a lot of time reading it, so it's easy for me to bust into that language and have fun with it. So I do it all the time. Like, when the kids ask me something and I have a real smart aleck response, I'm like, "Well, the Book of Fish says," and then I will say something utterly stupid. But when you add enough thines and thous and and therefore, it sounds good.
Right? I yeah, I'm gonna be on her podcast, Laura's podcast, I think in
Oh
May.
man,
Because I'm gonna
she's the
do a
girl.
little I'm gonna try to be on other people's podcasts to advertise the book. So we're gonna do a Kickstarter and stuff. So I'll ask for pointers. And I can't
Yeah,
wait to have you back on to talk with Annika one night. That'll be fun.
yeah,
That'll
man,
be
I
on a
would love to.
Thursday night. We usually do our episodes on Thursday nights, so or we're recordings. Um Where can people go over like your pitch or for your books? Where can they get them? Where can you find them?
Um, MrFishComics.com has all of my back issues and stuff that you can buy there. They're also available like in the TikTok shop if you're following me on TikTok. Um, GoMrFish.com, GOMRFISH.com will take you to whatever I'm working on right now. Like it was late pledges that were still open for Alice Lost in Wonderland issue 3, but I just shipped all that out last week, so that's closed. And now it takes you to the pre-launch page for issue 4, which will be launching in February because A, I'm not hitting everybody up for money during Christmas when everybody's broke already right now.
Mm-hmm.
And B, I want you to have time to get your legs underneath you in January
Right.
before we start. And I want to make sure, like you're doing, I want to make sure the book's done this time because this last time I was like, I'll finish it during the campaign or just right after. And then we had a bunch of family stuff happen and got sick and lost a grandpa for my kids. So I got bumped back a bit and it took me a couple weeks to finish it. Nobody was complaining, but my anxiety in my head was
Right.
screaming that the book's not done. You're always done by now. It's always shipped out by now. And I don't want to get the reputation of the guy that's inconsistent. Most books come out quickly, but you never know. So I'm going to make sure it's done
Yeah,
before we go
I'm
back to the campaign
100%
again.
gonna have a long box full of my comic before I hit launch on the Kickstarter. You
Then
know,
there is no fear, other
right?
than
Like
like
it's gonna be
maybe the
sitting right
post
here.
office is slow.
Right.
But it's like being able to show them a book on screen, be like, this is the book and flip through it, not I have a dream of a book, and that book will have color, and that book shall have 32 pages. But being able to be like,
Can you
flip,
change that to
here it
20 and
is.
redo that? Take two. It's 20 pages. 21 maybe.
Um, it's so nice. That's one of the things I like about being able to print up a copy myself, like being able to have a proof copy in my hand to flip through on podcasts and shows and be like, this is what the book is. Always freaks people out when they get to see it in my hands, and
I freaked
it's
out just
nice.
having these prints. Like
Oh
usually,
yeah.
you know, that's cover I did. It's not as good, but I like it. It's Panel Pete peeking out of a comic box. I get told all the
Hey,
time he looks like Pac-Man, but I don't know how to
don't be
change
hard
that.
on yourself, man. Some of those things get the best attention, man.
Right?
I I buy every issue of this little manga that this kid in Little Rock puts out, and he prints it up at a local copy shop, and like I don't think he even inks it. I think it's just Xerox pencils. And in the beginning, sometimes he would have to write explanations outside of the panel of what was going on in this panel because he drew it so badly, but it is such a fun story. It's so
Cool.
exciting. There has never been an issue that I don't yell a sound effect out loud, that I don't yell out like, oh crap, somewhere along the lines, that I don't cheer out loud at some point, or, I always end up like spitting on the book because I'm having so much fun yelling out sound effects. I love it. I've bought the only thing I regret is that I didn't buy like the whole bundle in the beginning and get it for
Mm.
like $60. And instead, I paid a lot more getting them one at a time each time I saw him at a show. I will buy every copy he puts out. And the artwork's not the greatest. And
That's awesome.
that keeps bringing me back.
That is awesome.
I made a fellow comic creator friend of mine, Todd Black, does a series, Tokyo Blade Detectives. And I saw his video, he had his video introduction, and it's just like an anime intro. He had to have spent a pretty penny on this, getting this thing made, because it's got like, you know, 3D backgrounds moving around and, sword fights and all this stuff and action, and it's just this action-packed anime intro for his comic. And I got so mad I never thought of that. And the beautiful thing is it's perennial. He can keep using this over and over for the series because it's always a good introduction for the series. And so I was like, well, that's what I need to do. And so I sat down and I was like, okay, I'm gonna make a quick one for Alice. And I got spent a couple of days working on it and I get done with it. I was like, man, this is cool. Everybody's telling me how awesome it is. And I'm like, that's not bad. It only took me like probably 3 or 4 days. And my wife is like, babe, it's been 15 days. And I was like, really? I just zoned out, and man, I was working. And some of those days, again, were like 16-hour days in there. But I got zoned in, and man, it it came out pretty good. And now looking back, and I'm like, oh man, I could do this better. I could do that better. I bought some new software since then, so I could do this even
Right.
better. And now I need to start an animation studio and start doing intro videos for comic books that I don't
Yeah.
have time to do because I have to draw the comic books.
Surprisingly, I did that in Canva. Canva released a new, like their new release this month or
Yeah,
last month was a new video editor. And I was like, okay. So that's the beta of their new video editor. It worked really well. And they have, I have a pro version of Canva. And so they have really awesome, royalty free music, which the music made that trailer, in my opinion. The music is
yeah,
phenomenal. Now it did when I uploaded it to YouTube, they tried to copyright strike it, and I fought them and sent them a bunch of nasty letter, and they within 24 hours released the copyright and gave it to me. So, because I was mad, like you
that's
can't,
that's the problem. All the sites like, and I quit going to the sites where like I'm paying them to license the music to be able to
right,
play in my video because then each individual place I go to doesn't believe I have the rights to it because they don't own the
right,
rights to it. If TikTok doesn't own the rights to do it, then they're like, no, you can't possibly have the rights. And I
right.
know musicians that keep getting violation strikes for using their own music.
Isn't
And
that weird? Isn't that
they're like,
crazy?
no, this is clearly professional. I got copyright strikes before on my own artwork because I was showing artwork from the comics and I got a violation for stealing, IP, because it was professional looking artwork, so it couldn't possibly be mine. And it's
Wow.
crazy. And then, if TikTok likes it, then YouTube's going to have a problem. Facebook's going to have a problem. Or so
Right.
it's tough.
It'll be interesting. So I'll probably release it tomorrow, unless you tell me otherwise. But um, the
It's cool.
I appreciate it. I worked hard on it.
Yeah, it's
Days.
it's it's a hard thing to do, man. I pour my heart and soul into each one of those intro videos and then end up, questioning every single bit of it and what could I have done better. And I I dearly want to sit down and make new models for all the characters in my new animation software so I can make one model that can do all kinds of different stuff. But then again, that takes time.
Takes a
And,
lot of time.
there's books to
I
be
did some
made.
3D modeling in college. That was crazy. I made a whole rocket ship and sent it to space and
And
launched a satellite. And
I that's what's frustrating. I was such a good 3D modeler and I was a pretty decent animator. I mean, I'm very objective about my own skills. Like most
right,
people would
me
probably
too.
say I
Yeah,
was
most people
amazing.
are. Right,
Compared to the other professionals out there, I was mediocre. But, I could get it done and what's going on and it'd have some life to it. But I wasn't going to make you believe it had a soul. Um, I wasn't doing like Studio Ghibli type stuff.
right.
I was making monsters roam around. But I was a good sculptor and a pretty good animator, and I loved it. And now that there's a world of 3D printers and stuff out there that you can buy for a couple $100, it's like I could be making so much awesome swag and toys to go with all my figures and all my books and stuff. But that software that I knew how to do all that stuff in is 50 generations old. They don't manufacture it anymore, haven't in probably a decade. And the new stuff is so far removed from what I knew how to use. And and then it comes down to, do I have 6 months to invest in learning a new software like Blender from scratch to get close to the same place that I was, or ZBrush or whatever, or do I just pay somebody else to do it? And it's just easier to pay somebody
Pay
who's already
somebody.
invested the time to learn the new software. Like I got a guy I hired to do my 3D figures and my vehicles like in Green Zone, they have these big beefed up police cars. So I knew it was going to be like a character in the book, so I had him build a model of that so I could look at it in 3D and draw it in my style. But I didn't have to waste time plotting out like how big was the car in this perspective, where
Huh.
would the door panels be, what side was the gas tank on again? You know, all that
That's
stuff is in the
awesome.
model, so I didn't have to
Yeah.
worry about that. And how many lug nuts did it have again? Because I will obsess over those things.
Right. It would
And
have 6 in one panel and 8 in another, and you,
yeah, and
yeah.
then I have to scrap that book and start over from scratch.
Oh my goodness. Well, that's only 10 hours worth of works
Yeah,
for you.
that's easy.
It'd be 40 years for me, but that's how I feel about doing art, right? Like I mean, I'm okay. Like I could do a little graphic design, I can draw a circle, I'm not good enough to do a comic book, maybe with a little bit more practice. So I finally relinquished that from myself and hired an artist, and that's been the most rewarding part about this whole project. So,
Well, and like anything, it's the time put in. It's like
right.
I've been really impressed by a friend of mine who really wanted to start doing comics, but he's a young dad. He's got, little kids. I got two twins or toddlers. And so he couldn't afford to hire an artist, outright to start doing pages. So he's like, I'm gonna teach myself how to draw. And his first book, Captain Jefferson, came out looking, with a real like '90s punk zine aesthetic. Like it was rough, but you know what's going on. You know who the characters are. It worked. It was rough, but it worked. Now he's doing stuff like I would hire him to do stuff any day now. Like he's gotten
That's
really
awesome.
good over like a year and a half. And it's but he's put in a lot of time. Like he's a
Right.
stay-at-home dad. So like when the kids are napping or something, he's grinding away the work. And that's just it. If I had the time to invest in learning 3D software,
Right.
I could be
You
doing
could do
3D
it.
animations of this and doing, 3D prints of all the characters and, but it just takes time to do it, and I'm choosing to spend that time making books instead. So
Right. I'll stick to my lane,
yeah, it's a
so
trade-off.
enjoying it. Well, dude, I really appreciate it. We've gone 2.5 hours. We could go another 2.5 hours. We could go
Easy.
16 hours probably, but I do need to go get some sleep and uh see the kid before she goes to bed. Even though I just got a note, we have a 3-hour delay in the morning because we got apparently some snow while we've been on this podcast. So apparently, um, it doesn't snow in North Carolina, not where we're at, not in the
My
Piedmont.
wife
So,
and daughter-in-law took all the grandbabies out to go look at Christmas lights
oh, sweet,
so I could have quiet to do this in the
that was
living room.
nice.
And so I'm probably going to have to go too, because if they're in the car waiting, I'm in a lot of trouble.
I hope to God they're not. But
Hopefully
on
not.
that,
Hopefully she took her out to dinner. But
yeah, on that note, dude, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for agreeing to
absolutely,
be on.
man.
And I will definitely, especially when your Kickstarter launches, let's get you on one of our shows with Annika.
Yeah.
We can talk about that. She'll do a this or that game with you, give you a bunch of points. It's like Whose Line Is It Anyway? Everything's made up and the points don't matter. You'll get positive, I'll get negative. We'll have the same answers. It just the way she works. TS, I have a really cool reel with TS when he played with her on that, and it was, TS destroyed me. So, but thank you again so much for being on. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. This is a fun conversation.
Awesome. Hey, comic creators, artists, writers, world builders, this is your call to action. Here at Talkin Comics, we love diving into the stories behind the stories. Whether you're just starting out or you've been in the game for years, we want to hear your journey, your creative process, and what fuels your imagination. So, ready to talk comics with us? Message us or hit the link in our bio and be a guest on Talkin Comics. Trying to start a podcast but feeling stuck? At Aquadio, we help creators make waves with everything you need to bring your voice to life. Hosting, recording, editing, and marketing. Whether you're starting from scratch or just need a little help polishing your sound, we're here to hydropower your creativity. Comment on this video or DM us today and let's dive in.